NARCAD webcasts, fresh content, expert speakers, and new ideas in the field. Hello, everyone, and welcome to NARCAD's webcast series, where we have fresh content, expert speakers, and new ideas in the field of academic detailing. Today, we'll be talking about driving change through e-detailing or virtual detailing, the tools, the techniques, and the best practices you need. So what's the plan? We'll be talking about what is academic detailing when it's in an e-detailing format? What are the benefits? How can you adapt the traditional approaches of academic detailing for virtual delivery? And how can you tailor your materials for online learning versus being held in someone's hand? Lastly, we'll share tools and resources for you to be able to implement an e-detailing strategy, whether it's for one campaign or campaigns from here on out. All right, so let's get started. Very quick refresher. What's academic detailing again? It's one-to-one educational outreach for frontline clinicians. Visits tend to last around 20 minutes on average, sometimes less, sometimes more. It incorporates an individualized needs assessment, which means that the detailer or the educator will be asking that frontline clinician open-ended questions to get them talking about their experiences, their expertise, their knowledge on a given clinical content area, their behaviors and attitudes around prescribing, screening, and treatment. It also features an illustrative detailing aid, which is what we call the brochure or the tablet that you can see right there on your screen being held by the detailer on the right and shared with the doctor on the left. Academic detailing is always interactive. It's never someone lecturing at a doctor, which is pretty boring and would never change behavior. So now what? What's e-detailing? Well, it's the same thing. It's just virtual. Here are the benefits. First of all, increased accessibility. While we all know that we live in an increasingly virtual world, especially as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which began in late 2019, now it's really important to think, even though we can return to the clinic, should we always do that? How can we reach clinicians in rural areas who might not be able to be easily accessible for in-person visits? Being able to access your computer is often something you can do no matter where you are. There's greater flexibility with e-detailing than academic detailing in a traditional sense, because it offers scheduling convenience for both detailers and clinicians, and it reduces the need for travel. Traveling as much isn't just a time constraint, it's also a resource constraint. And it makes it so that detailers can meet more people in less time. The cost effectiveness of that is palpable. Saving on travel as well as printing materials, accommodations if you're traveling, makes programs more sustainable over time. And you can scale up or down the delivery of e-detailing with ease. It enables broader outreach across regions or health systems without requiring additional staff. So if you were a traditional academic detailer who had to travel 10 hours a week, those 10 hours of travel can now be used for one-to-one sessions in 2 dimensions. E-detailing really is a similar approach to academic detailing in the traditional way. Outreach and scheduling ensures that an outreach method is clear and easy to engage with technologically. Rescheduling challenges do often pop up a little bit more with e-detailing, so that's something to consider. You'll often have a few more last-minute no-shows, cancellations, being ghosted, because clinicians may not feel that somebody who is online is a real person versus somebody who's standing right in front of them. It's easier to say out of sight, out of mind and cancel that meeting. That's something you'll want to plan for and expect and not take personally. In terms of materials development and application, the format is different, but your content will be the same. We'll talk more about that a little further on in this session. The structure of your visit, starting with an introduction, moving through a needs assessment, key message delivery, handling of objections and barriers, summarizing, and then closing and asking for commitment is all the same. Same order, same flow. Clinician engagement, a little different. While there are plenty of distractions in an in-person clinic, people knocking on doors, scheduling and patients running behind, people interrupting, loud noises, those will still happen via e-detailing. They might be a little bit different, but you'll be able to handle them. There also may be less time available than was originally scheduled, which often happens for in-person detailing. But again, somebody may feel that once they're on their computer and distracted by emails and all of the note-taking they need to do, there may be an ask to shorten a session. You should again be prepared for that and not take it personally. All right, let's talk about adaptations with e-detailing. The first thing you want to think about is the difference in communication when you're online. We all know that reading body language is important. And right now, those of you who are watching this video can see my hands moving, you can see facial expressions, but you can't see what's happening much further down. You can't see if I'm crossing my leg or bobbing my knee impatiently. You might not be able to see if I check my watch over here. So consider that not only are you less able to see the clinician's body language, they're less able to see you in your fullness. So you'll want to be able to express yourself all the more fully by accentuating your facial expressions and using hand gestures, while also modulating your voice more than you would in person so that you can emphasize key points and also make sure you're still retaining their attention. We can't say this enough. Practice is important no matter what format you're using for detailing, but for e-detailing, practicing is particularly important. You'll not only want to practice your tone and style by walking through your steps of a visit and your materials with a friend or a colleague, but you'll want to practice moving back and forth between the slides you'll need to use. Yep, in-person detailing, slides are almost always a no-no unless you're giving a precursory group detailing visit so that you can engage folks and get them to sign up for one-to-one visits. But when you're doing e-detailing, slides have to happen and you want to make sure you're not lecturing. So practice is going to be key, and making sure you practice with someone will be equally key. One thing we want to suggest is recording yourself on Zoom or using your phone so that you can hear yourself practicing phrases via audio or video so that you can review your modulation, your facial expressions, and your body language. Again, practice makes perfect. When you're thinking about the clinician's body language, which you, as we mentioned before, may not be as able to observe as easily as you would have in person, it's really important to ask extra check-in questions than you would in person, such as, I'm going to pause. Does this all make sense so far? Is this what you've seen in your practice? Am I going at a good pace? Let me know at any time if you want me to speed up or slow down. It sounds silly, but doing these offers a person who may be listening politely and thinks that you are in presentation mode a chance to really weigh in on what is meeting their needs and what may not be. So again, practice and expecting to pause often to check in is something you should be doing for any detailing visit, but extra when you're doing e-detailing. All right, let's talk about the structure of a visit and the ways you may adapt some of it for e-detailing. This is important for you to think about. And if you don't know our structure of a visit yet, please join one of our 101 academic detailing techniques trainings or check out our webcast on AD 101. Those of you who already know the structure of a visit, here it is again. It's your handy structure that you should know like the back of your hand before you get out into the field. We'll walk through each step as a quick refresher. You've got your introduction, which I mentioned before, where you share who you are and what value you bring in a succinct and clear way. Next, you ask your open-ended questions. You're delivering a needs assessment. You want to know, what does this clinician need? And what do they believe, think? What are their beliefs about specific clinical content? And what ways do they practice and provide care for their patients? You're inviting clinicians to share their story when you're completing step 2. Once you do that, you move into step 3, which is where you're delivering a key message and suggesting a new approach or practice for a clinician to try. Almost inevitably, when you deliver a key message, you'll be met with an objection. And so it's your job to handle those and expect them. You'll listen closely and respond when a clinician isn't quite ready to try that new key message or that new approach. And what's key more than anything else is going right back to step 2 and asking more questions to really understand where the hesitancy is and why that clinician might not be ready yet. Once you've figured that out and hopefully smoothed things over and offered alternate ways to approach the key message, or perhaps even shared a different key message. Up next is step 5, your summary. That's when you review the key highlights of the visit and of the conversation to ensure there's mutual understanding. And last but not least, here in red is step 6, the commitment and the close. That's when you ask for a specific concrete commitment to change. You agree on next steps and what's feasible for that clinician, and you secure a follow-up visit in an agreed upon period of time. All right, now let's break down each step and how you might alter them a tiny bit for e-detailing. Introduction. You're still going to introduce yourself in a way that's hopefully warm and inviting and gets the clinician engaged right off the bat. But here are some considerations for adapting your approach to introducing yourself. You may want to start with some small talk and acknowledging that you're e-detailing, that it can be a little bit awkward to be online with somebody versus right there in their practice. You may want to say, hey, I can't exactly see what's happening in your practice. It'll lead into a great needs assessment question by saying, I can only see the screen that you're on and a couple of things in the background. What does your waiting room look like right now? It's a great opportunity to just make something that could be awkward into something smoother. Your opportunities here are that you can customize your detailing background or your e-detailing background with your name, your logo, or your detailing program. That helps you look more professional. And you want to make sure, of course, no matter what step you're at in the visit, that you've got great lighting, a solid microphone, and that you're dressed professionally. You'll want to update your display name to include your title, affiliation, and your pronouns if you're comfortable. That way, it doesn't say laptop 24 when you're joining a professional meeting, and instead says your full name and what organization you're from. All right, moving on to the needs assessment. Here are some considerations and adaptations for this step. It's even more critical, as I mentioned before, not to lecture in a virtual setting. You can really lose someone's attention easily, and we all have learned over the past couple of years of being on virtual meetings how to act like we're paying attention when we're not. You absolutely don't want that to happen to you, where a clinician is nodding politely. So get clinicians talking about themselves immediately. Never stop asking questions throughout the entire visit. And I mean that. You want to make sure people are alert, aware, and feel like you care about what they think. It allows the visit to come to life and really feel like a dialogue, which is so difficult to achieve in a virtual setting. Practice makes perfect. Make sure you have a list of questions right there with you until you're comfortable doing this with your eyes closed. Here are some opportunities for adaptations that are actually really, really terrific about e-detailing and things that you actually can't do quite as well when you're in person. You can use a Zoom chat box to demonstrate active listening or whatever platform you're using, so that when someone's speaking, you can summarize what they're saying in small bullets in the chat box or using a whiteboard feature. That's always a way for visual learners to really feel like you're right there with them and that they're able to see their thoughts in real time. Next up, you can invite the clinician to share their screen. So let's say you're in the middle of a needs assessment and you ask them a question about workflow. You can invite them to share their screen and show you a little bit about how their EHR works, what some of their protocol policies and procedures might be. It's a great way to get them talking about things like tools and resources they've used that they like. And it also offers you insights into their preferences and the way that they like to do things. Now let's move on to key messages and their features and benefits. Here's your considerations for adaptation. Again, make sure you pause often for understanding. And as with any conversation, either in person or virtually, saying, can you say that again in a different way if you don't understand? Don't pretend you understand when you don't. That's one of the worst things you can do as a detailer. In fact, asking questions just offers an opportunity for a clinician to reword things in a way that might provide you a really deep understanding, whereas before you weren't quite sure. Encourage the use of platform tools while you're talking. So for instance, saying, I'm going to share a few things. If at any point you want to jump in, feel free to use the raise hand or chat box feature, or just start talking. I really don't mind. Sometimes you can say things like, make a timeout motion, and I'll be happy to stop speaking and offer you the microphone. That way clinicians can jump in instead of, again, feeling like you might be presenting at them instead of talking with them. You can be innovative with your materials using e-detailing in a way that you can't quite do in person. It has its drawbacks and its positives, and we'll talk a little bit more about those in detail in terms of adapting current materials that were used for in-person design in just a few slides. But you can be really innovative when you're doing e-detailing. You can show a risk calculator in real time by sharing your screen and showing them how to fill it out, or ask them to do the same. Similarly, you can break your detailing aid into small digestible chunks, isolating different components so that there's an order to their absorption of information. Whereas if you're holding a long piece of paper, you can't quite control where the clinician's eye might go. This way, you're able to order the flow of the conversation a little more tightly, which is great. Now, let's talk about handling objections. Some considerations and adaptations for these include, you might need to draw them out. Again, this is a situation where a lot of clinicians might politely nod and smile. So saying, any questions, isn't going to cut the mustard. You might want to say something like, I want to make sure that this feels doable for you. Can you envision adopting this key message and tell me where you think there might be some drawbacks, challenges, or hiccups? Offer them a space to really think about it in real time. And that way, you're not just thinking you knocked a meeting out of the park when really you didn't scratch the surface. Try questions like, is this something you could see yourself doing? Why or why not? Really get them talking. Other opportunities back to the screen sharing element include the opportunity for an objection to be met in real time. So let's say a clinician says, there's always this pop-up that bothers me on my EHR that would get in the way of me incorporating this next step. You can say, can you show me that in real time? And maybe they'll be able to. They can illustrate a barrier in real time in a way that's really helpful, especially if it's something that occurs on their computer screens. Also, you can continue to ask them, well, If this tool doesn't feel doable for you, can you show me an example of one you prefer? Again, giving them the agency to lead that part of the conversation. We're getting to step 5, which is summary and closing. Here are some considerations and adaptations for this step. While summarizing clearly and succinctly is key no matter what format you're in, you will lose the clinician if you talk too much during an e-detailing visit. You want to make sure you are as succinct as humanly possible. And we can't say enough. If you want to write out a script that you have open on your screen that only you can see and read from it in a way that hopefully sounds natural so that you stay clear and succinct and precise and concise, do it. Closing and making the ask directly and clearly is even more important in this format. We'll move into that in a moment. An opportunity here is as you're summarizing, again, you can use the chat box, you can share screen and share a Word document or use the whiteboard feature, and you can write out bulleted nuggets that show the highlights from your discussion and any next steps you might decide to take together. Detailers can also use this additional information that you want to provide. So if you have resources or links, pop it right in the chat box. Or if there are any nuggets and resources you put in the chat box, you can easily cut and paste them and pop them into an email that you send as a thank you and a follow-up at the end of the visit. All right, so this was actually steps 5 and 6, the summary and the close. You've learned everything you need to about how to adapt those specific steps of a visit. Now let's talk about adapting materials. We can't tell you how many folks have taken paper materials and just scanned them and used those as the detailing aid for an e-detailing visit. That couldn't be more of a no-no, and we'll show you why. First of all, if you've already developed materials for an in-person visit, work with what you have or what other folks have made. You don't need to start from scratch for e-detailing. If you're starting an initiative that's only going to be e-detailing or has a hybrid approach, make sure that you make materials that are easy to see and that don't contain too much information on a slide. And especially if you're hybrid, make sure that the materials are the same in person in terms of content as they would be in terms of e-detailing, but that the flow is different. Again, if you already have campaign materials and you're going to adapt them from in-person tangible materials to e-detailing, make simple changes. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can also ask for support from folks you know who are a little more tech savvy, have graphic design experience, etc. And you can invest your time in tutorials for free graphics programs like Piktochart or Canva if you want to transform some of your original content into something easier to visualize on a computer. Here's an example we'll share of why just snapshotting an entire page of a detailing aid is not going to work well when you're doing e-detailing. Here is a bifold that we really love from a prior campaign around HIV PrEP. This is how it opens up when you're holding it in person. But if you were to just throw this all up on the screen, I think the first thing you're going to be thinking is there is way too much content here. Not only that, the font is too small. And a clinician can't choose when they're scrolling or when they're zooming in or out of certain information. You're the one who's at the helm of that ship, and they will be reliant on you to zoom in. Sometimes they might not say, I can't see that. They might just nod and smile. You don't want that to happen. Here's the rest of the detailing aid from this campaign. Again, if we were to just quick and dirty snapshot it and throw it onto slides, here's 2 slides, but they don't work well for e-detailing and you won't be able to affect change. So here's some tips and reminders, and we'll use that exact same detailing aid and break it into digestible chunks to show you how it's done. Remember, the tip of all tips in any detailing aid, but especially online, is that less is more. You don't want to overwhelm clinicians with too many statistics, too many different colors, too much information, and too much text. You can always consider your detailing aid a menu where more information about each dish can be shared when asked. Ask yourself the following questions when you are either adapting a prior existing detailing aid or creating a new online detailing aid. How can I illustrate this issue and this campaign with the most direct content? How can I encourage interactivity often? And how can I use the space, the retail, as well as I can, the real estate rather? The real estate is precious, but overloading clinicians will overwhelm them. You want to break up the text with images and choose compelling ones that illustrate your message. You also want to consider diversity and reality to break stereotypes. So make sure that not all of the images you use are all white people. Make sure that they're not all males. Make sure you're representing people from a diverse set of walks of life. And make sure you check royalty information. Don't grab a screenshot that you haven't paid for without checking that it's either free for general use or that you've paid your royalty for it. All right, let's talk about content and design. After you've designed your content, you always want to field test it with others on Zoom or the platform you'll be using. Don't just show them slides with you sitting next to them. Make sure that you jump on a fake call or meeting and test walking through it. You can ask colleagues within your program, other clinicians or healthcare professionals, get them to offer their honest feedback. Ask them, is this material clear? Why or why not? Is it engaging? Why or why not? What's missing? Or is there too much of something? And what would you change? And again, just like with the steps of a visit, practice communicating this material. You want to do live practice runs to see how well prepared you are. Can you toggle between content pieces? If a clinician says, I want to go back to the risk calculator you brought up at the beginning of this visit, your brain should know I'm on slide 14 and that's on slide 6, and be able to toggle quickly without saying, where is that slide? You can also pause and make notes as you go while you're practicing this. So if you realize that 2 slides refer to each other more often than you thought, move that slide, even if it's in a slightly different order than the original detailing aid. Or make yourself a note in the notes section so that when you're in presentation mode, you see a note that says, if the clinician asks about the risk calculator, go back 5 slides. That's not the right math, but you'll let me get away with that. You also want to record your sessions, your test sessions, and play them back. See where you were confident, see where you slipped up, and practice until you got it down. You also want to have a follow-up email ready to go. Don't write your follow-up emails from scratch at the end of each e-detailing session. That will take you forever, and you want something that maximizes your time and your efficiency. You want to write down the commitment and agreed upon follow-up time in the email. So have a standard shell of an email where you can add bullets at the end that say, we agreed that you would try HIV PrEP prescribing on the next 2 clients or patients that are open to receiving it, whatever the agreed upon commitment was. Send your email right after that visit while it's fresh in your mind and the clinicians. Don't wait a week. Share the attachments of the detailing aids and other materials you discussed or materials that were requested. Here's where we recommend sharing a PDF version of the slides you shared, as well as, if you have it, a copy of the PDF of the original handheld detailing aid, if that was part of your original campaign or your hybrid campaign. Share those links and any text you put in the chat box that you think would be helpful in the body of that email, and include links in your email to scheduling apps or websites that others can use to set up a follow-up visit for you, if that's something you're comfortable and confident using. The idea is that whatever you share with this clinician via email is something they can hit forward and send to some of their colleagues so that you can get visits with them as well. All right, now we're going to revisit our example, the HIV PrEP detailing aid. You'll remember it was pretty crowded. We're going to talk about how to break this into digestible slides. So let's look at the title. What we did was screenshot it and put it on a slide with a sharper background that really shows and starts off the AD e-detailing visit with the clear goal of what this campaign is all about. Next, we grabbed the content from the middle. We screenshotted it here, but it was too pixelated. So we rewrote it using a PowerPoint new slide. So it's nice and sharp, and so that the content and the font is as close to the original as we could get to. It worked. Those are examples of how to really make the content pop when you are either screenshotting or revamping the content. You never want to share something that's pixelated because it looks unprofessional. But this only took about 5 minutes to recreate. So use your time wisely and ask yourself, if this was new information for me, would I be able to follow it? Also consider using animations so that each bullet shows up one at a time. Even a slide that has not too much on it like this one can be visually overwhelming for someone. So being able to start with, what is PrEP? And then the first blue bullet, PrEP is a once daily pill that, etc., can really be an easier way for someone to digest information. Make sure you work in those animations and you know what's coming next when you are actually presenting this content live. Again, practice is critical to success. You'll need to practice twice as much as you would for an in-person visit. Poor familiarity with your materials, not knowing, hey, what slide was that on? What's coming next? Is definitely going to undermine your credibility. Don't rely on those materials too much to tell the story. The idea is, if your slide deck suddenly disappeared, you should still be able to have a really robust conversation with that clinician. Again, a reminder to practice pausing and asking questions early and often. Don't just ask questions during the needs assessment, ask it throughout. Otherwise, your session will sound like this, a recorded session like what I'm offering you. And be ready to refer to the original body of evidence that supports each bit of key messages. So when you have a key message in a handheld detailing aid, there's usually a reference page. You certainly want to make sure those references are included in your slides, but you can't expect a clinician to be able to read through 10, 12, 15 references in tiny font on a slide. So make sure you send those along in an email, and make sure that if someone asks you while you're in the middle of slide 10, where did this information come from, that you don't have to toggle through a stack of tangible papers to find it. That you can say, that's from the American Heart Association's clinical trial from 2018. And that you'll be able to send that link to them in real time in the chat box or right after the call. Remember, this will all take you time. There's a lot of ramp up you'll need to do, and you should consider your PowerPoint slides a living document that you can tweak anytime you have a session and realize that something needs to shift. And if you have prior materials, you'll have to adapt them and it will take time, but the time you invest will be an investment in the quality and success of your visits. As with in-person visits, every visit for e-detailing is going to be very different. Your job is to master the ability to present the content while making it still feel and act like an interactive conversation. You're not there to know all of the answers, just like with an in-person visit, but you should be able to triage any questions that are asked to you and get back to them, responding to them via email in the very near future. Don't leave any questions from your clinicians hanging, whether you're in person, hybrid, or e-detailing. Strong follow-up really is key. You need to maintain that relationship and show that you're accountable, that you can offer support in implementing that change, and that you care about the questions they asked that you might not have been able to answer on the spot. Don't forget, clinicians are doing tons of telehealth visits themselves. So over the past few years, we hope that clinicians have become more tech savvy, and many of them understand the challenges of conveying information across this medium. It's not easy. Don't forget that a successful e-detailing outcome might look very, very different from a successful in-person detailing visit. Sometimes just getting through the material and setting up a follow-up visit is the kind of success that you want. It might take longer to build the relationship this way through e-detailing, but you can do it. Just have patience, really celebrate small wins, and again, practice makes perfect. We're here to support you. We have a fantastic e-detailing toolkit. It's all curated tools we put together to help you facilitate fantastic virtual visits. Looking at this from left to right, you'll see that we have a section on getting started with e-detailing, a frequently asked questions list, a checklist for success, a webinar, and tips for success. So making sure you're ready to go. Then we have a section on best practices from our AD community with blogs, presentations, webinars from our colleagues across the field of detailing on how to do this and do it well. We also have some virtual learning platforms and scheduling tools so that if you're not sure where to start with setting up calendar appointments through online mediums, you can learn with us. And last but not least, we have a whole compendium of e-detailing articles, studies, and publications that really show how this works and what the upsides and challenges are. So please do explore our technical assistance offerings at narcad.org. We really want to be there to help you, and you can click on the tools menu to find our e-detailing toolkit. And let us know if there's a tool there that you want to see more of, or a tool there that you'd like to see that isn't there yet. We also want to remind you that we're here to help you train. So whether you're going to be in the field e-detailing or otherwise, we can get you ready for successful detailing in just a few days. So check out our training opportunities as well as some of our convenings. We do have an annual conference series every fall, and we're really looking forward to you joining us for our next one. We come together to chat, to learn, and to grow. We also have a mid-year summertime academic detailing virtual summit series. It's just like the conference, but it's always virtual. So you don't need to get on a plane. It's a 2-day event, and we record all the main sessions and include those recordings and the slide decks and bonus materials on our Summit Hub page. Everything from how to include the patient voice to e-detailing are things that are included on our Summit Hub page. So please do check it out. You can also join our community check-ins, which happen quarterly. You don't have to do this work alone. You can ask other folks, how have you done e-detailing? And they'll talk to you about the things that they've done, the challenges that they faced, the mistakes they made, and the ways that they learned to overcome those mistakes and put into practice some of the tools and approaches that we talked about in this webcast. We also want to encourage you, last but not least, to check out our Changing Minds podcast, Transformative Talks for Healthcare Improvement. It's available on our website under the blog and podcast tabs. You can also check it out on Spotify and Apple. We've hosted over 15 episodes and we're looking forward to new ones. And they're great to pop on. They're less than a half an hour. And we talk about things from HIV detailing, HIV prevention, to opioid safety, to harm reduction, to bringing academic detailing as a strategic approach into new spaces, including volunteer firefighter spaces, the drag community's performance spaces, and working with legislators. So please do check those out. Until next time, we're really happy you joined us today. Let us know how we did by scanning this QR code or by sending us an email at narcad@bmc.org. Thanks so much for checking out this webcast, and please email us and let us know what other kinds of virtual content you'd like to see that would support your team's growth in academic detailing in the best way that you can. Take care.